Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books in Bytes. Today we're diving into a piece of history, a pretty fascinating one, the first circumnavigation of the globe.
Yeah, a story full of daring ambition, incredible hardship, and encounters with cultures very different from the explorer's own.
Exactly. We're exploring the first voyage round the world by Magellan. It's a collection of first-hand accounts from this incredible journey.
Wow.
It's amazing to think what these explorers experienced as they kind of sailed into the unknown.
Absolutely. And as we delve into these accounts, a few key themes stand out.
Okay.
First, the sheer scale of their undertaking and the physical challenges they faced.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine navigating uncharted waters, battling storms, and enduring dwindling supplies for years on end.
Oh, it's mind-boggling.
And then there's this constant tension between Magellan and his crew, a mix of nationalities, personalities, and ambitions, all confined to the wooden walls of their ships.
Mm-hmm.
That tension is like a constant thread in the narrative.
Yeah.
Finally, we can't forget the cultural encounters, which are both fascinating and at times unsettling.
So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
The book tells us that Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese navigator, but he ended up leading a Spanish expedition. How did that happen?
Well, Magellan was convinced that the Spice Islands, the Moluccas, actually fell within Spain's territory based on how the world was divided between Spain and Portugal.
Uh-huh.
He was determined to find a westward route to these islands, a route that would benefit Spain.
So he basically went to Spain and was like, hey, I can get you to the Spice Islands, give me some ships.
Essentially, yes.
Uh-huh.
And King Charles III of Spain, eager to find a new route to the lucrative spice trade, agreed to support the expedition.
Okay.
But it wasn't that simple.
Right.
The Portuguese king was not happy about this at all.
Oh.
And even some of Magellan's own crew, who were Spanish, weren't thrilled about serving under a Portuguese captain.
Wow, talk about starting off with some serious baggage.
Yes.
So they set sail with 5 ships, over 200 men, enough provisions for 2 years.
It's hard to even fathom the scale of that undertaking.
I know, it's incredible.
Think about the logistics involved. Not just food and water, but also the sails, the ropes, the tools for repair,
Yeah.
and the weapons for defense. They were essentially a floating city venturing into the unknown.
And one of the first things they encountered was that vastness of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, and this is where we see that first theme of physical hardship really come into play.
Okay.
The book describes relentless storms, weeks of becalmed seas, and the constant fear of running out of supplies.
I remember that passage where one of the chroniclers describes the sea as a vast and trackless desert. It perfectly captures the feeling of isolation and uncertainty they must have felt.
Absolutely, and then they reached the coast of South America, which presented a whole new set of challenges.
Like that immense Rio de la Plata, which they initially thought might be the passage they were looking for.
Yes, they spent weeks exploring this enormous river system, only to realize it was a dead end. Imagine the disappointment and frustration they must have felt.
And it's in this region that they encounter the Patagonians,
Right.
described as giants by the Europeans.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
Imagine landing on a shore and seeing people taller than you've ever imagined, wearing animal skins,
Right.
speaking a language you don't understand.
Yeah.
It must have felt like stepping into a mythical land.
It's no wonder that stories of giants and other fantastical creatures became so prevalent in European tales of exploration.
Yeah.
These encounters really fueled their imagination and perhaps their fears as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Patagonians were just the first of many cultures they would encounter that challenged their understanding of the world and humanity.
So they continued down the South American coast, facing more storms, dwindling supplies, and growing tension within the crew.
Yeah.
And then things really come to a head at Port St. Julian.
This is where we see that simmering conflict between Magellan and some of his Spanish captains erupt into a full-blown mutiny.
Right. The book doesn't shy away from the brutal details of this event.
Right.
Magellan was forced to take decisive, and some might say ruthless action to regain control.
He executed some of the mutineers and marooned others, leaving them to an uncertain fate in this desolate land.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder of the high stakes involved and the lengths to which Magellan was willing to go to achieve his goal. It was a real turning point in the voyage.
Yeah.
The mutiny highlighted the fragility of Magellan's authority
Right.
and the deep divisions within the crew.
Makes you realize these expeditions were not just about exploration and discovery,
Yeah.
but also about power, ambition, and the immense psychological pressure of being so far from home.
Exactly. And amidst all this turmoil, they were still searching for that elusive passage to the Pacific.
Right.
Remarkable that they didn't just turn back after all they had endured.
Well, Magellan was nothing if not determined. And eventually they did find it, the treacherous strait that would later bear his name.
The Strait of Magellan. Imagine navigating through that narrow passage, surrounded by towering cliffs, treacherous currents,
Wow.
and unpredictable winds.
The book describes their awe at the landscape, the towering mountains, the glaciers, these dense forests that seemed to rise straight from the water's edge. It must have felt like entering a mythical realm.
It was a moment of both triumph and trepidation.
Right.
They had found the passage,
Yeah.
but the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on Earth, still lay ahead.
And they had no idea what awaited them on the other side.
Think about it.
Yeah.
They were sailing into a vast unknown,
Right?
with limited navigational tools, relying on the stars and their intuition.
Wow.
The courage and resilience it must have taken is simply astounding.
And this is where we really see the true genius of Magellan as a navigator.
Yeah.
He managed to guide his ships across this vast expanse
Right.
using rudimentary instruments and his knowledge of the stars.
It's worth mentioning that their navigational techniques were remarkably sophisticated for the time. They used astrolabes and quadrants to measure the angles of the stars and calculate their latitude.
Wow.
But even with these tools, navigating across the Pacific was an incredible feat.
And they had to contend with more than just the vastness of the ocean.
Right.
The book describes terrible storms, dwindling supplies, and the constant threat of scurvy.
Scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C, was a scourge of seafarers in those days.
Oh, wow.
It could weaken and debilitate an entire crew.
The accounts describe men's gums swelling, their teeth falling out, their bodies riddled with sores.
Ugh.
It must have been a living nightmare.
And yet, they persevered.
Wow.
After months at sea, they finally sighted land, the Ladrone Islands, which we know today as the Marianas Islands.
The name meaning Islands of Thieves hints at the less than welcoming reception they received from the native inhabitants.
The book describes how the islanders were skilled at pilfering items from the ships, even managing to make off with one of the skiffs. It was a reminder that not all encounters with new cultures would be peaceful or mutually beneficial.
And it foreshadows the more complex and at times troubling interactions they would have in the Philippines.
But before we get to the Philippines,
Right.
it's worth noting the sheer scale of their achievement.
Right.
They had crossed the Pacific, a journey that had never been attempted before by Europeans.
It's a testament to their courage, their endurance, and their unwavering belief in Magellan's vision.
And it really highlights that transformative power of exploration.
Yeah.
They had literally expanded the known world, pushing the boundaries of human understanding.
But as we know, their journey was far from over.
Right.
The Philippines would bring new challenges, new encounters, and ultimately tragedy for Magellan himself.
Their arrival in the Philippines marked a significant shift in the narrative. It's here that the theme of cultural encounter really comes to the forefront.
The book describes a complex tapestry of interactions, from initial curiosity and trade to misunderstandings, conflict, and ultimately Magellan's death.
It's important to note that Magellan's approach to these encounters differed from some of his contemporaries.
Oh.
He seemed genuinely interested in understanding the local cultures and establishing peaceful relations, at least initially.
He saw the potential for trade and even for converting these populations to Christianity.
And he did achieve some success in this regard. The book describes how he converted several Filipino rulers and established trade agreements.
But those successes were often overshadowed by misunderstandings and clashes.
Language barriers, cultural differences, and the inherent power imbalance between the Europeans and the islanders created a volatile mix.
And then there's that tragic episode on the island of Matan where Magellan, attempting to intervene in a local conflict, was killed in battle against the chieftain Lapu-Lapu.
It's a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the unintended consequences of even well-intentioned actions.
Magellan's death was a devastating blow to the expedition.
Yeah.
They were now without their leader, thousands of miles from home, and facing an uncertain future.
But remarkably, they didn't give up.
Wow.
They pressed on, driven by a combination of duty, ambition, and perhaps a desire to honor Magellan's legacy.
And eventually, they did reach their ultimate destination, the Spice Islands.
Imagine the feeling of finally setting foot on those islands, the source of the coveted cloves and nutmeg that had driven their journey for so long.
It must have felt like a bittersweet victory,
Yeah.
achieved at such a high cost.
They loaded their ships with spices and prepared for the long and perilous journey back to Spain.
Right.
But even now, with their goal in sight, their trials were far from over.
We left off with that remaining crew in the Spice Islands having achieved Magellan's goal, but at a terrible cost.
Indeed, their journey back to Spain proved just as perilous as their outward voyage.
Right.
They faced storms, disease, dwindling supplies, and even the loss of another ship.
It's remarkable that any of them made it back alive.
It speaks to the human capacity for resilience and the sheer determination that drove these explorers.
And think about the psychological impact of this trip.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine being at sea for years, facing constant danger, witnessing the deaths of your comrades, and being exposed to cultures and landscapes so different from anything you'd ever known.
It must have been a truly transformative experience, one that forever altered their perception of the world and their place in it.
How do you even come back from that?
It's fascinating to consider how these experiences might have shaped their beliefs, their values, and their outlook on life.
So after enduring all these hardships, the Victoria, the sole surviving ship, finally limped back into port in Spain in 1522.
Marking the completion of the first circumnavigation of the globe.
A momentous achievement.
One that would forever change our understanding of the world's geography and open up new possibilities for exploration, trade, and cultural exchange.
But it also came at a steep price.
Yes.
Magellan himself didn't live to see the completion of his dream, and many of his crew perished along the way.
Their sacrifices highlight the risks and complexities of these early voyages of discovery. It wasn't just about adventure and glory. It was about pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and endurance, often at great personal cost.
And it's important to remember that these voyages weren't just about exploration. They also had profound implications for the future of global politics and trade.
Magellan's voyage, for example, helped to solidify Spain's claim to the Philippines, leading to centuries of colonial rule.
Wow.
It also opened up new trade routes to the east, fueling the European desire for spices and other exotic goods.
The impact of these voyages on indigenous populations is complex and often troubling.
Yeah.
While there were instances of peaceful exchange and even cooperation, the arrival of Europeans often brought disease, exploitation, and cultural disruption.
It's crucial to acknowledge this darker side of exploration and colonialism as we reflect on the legacy of Magellan's voyage.
One aspect of the book that I found particularly fascinating was the account of the lost day.
Ah, yes, the tangible consequence of circumnavigating the globe.
They had been traveling westward, following the sun, and upon their return, they realized that their calendar was a day behind.
It's a mind-boggling concept, and it highlights the fact that time is not absolute, but is relative to our position and movement in the world.
It's a testament to the scientific implications of Magellan's voyage,
Right.
going beyond just the geographical discoveries.
And it's a reminder that even in the 16th century, these explorers were challenging long-held assumptions and making groundbreaking observations about the nature of our planet.
Looking back on this incredible journey, what do you think are the most important takeaways for us today?
I think there are several.
Okay.
First, it's a reminder of the power of human curiosity and the drive to explore the unknown.
Yeah.
Magellan and his crew faced incredible hardship and risk, but they persevered, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to expand the boundaries of human experience.
I agree, and it also highlights the importance of adaptability and resilience. They had to constantly adjust to new challenges, new environments, and new cultures.
Yeah.
Their ability to improvise, to learn, and to overcome obstacles is truly inspiring.
And finally, I think it's a reminder of the interconnectedness of our world. Magellan's voyage demonstrated that even in the 16th century, events in one part of the globe could have ripple effects across vast distances.
It's a lesson that's perhaps even more relevant today in our increasingly globalized world.
Absolutely.
We are all interconnected, and our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings.
So true.
So if you were offered a place on a voyage of exploration like Magellan's, knowing the risks and uncertainties involved, would you accept the challenge?
That's a question that each listener will have to answer for themselves. But I think exploring the first voyage around the world offers us a glimpse into the hearts and minds of those who dared to venture into the unknown.
It's a story that continues to resonate centuries later, reminding us of the power of human ambition, the allure of discovery, and the enduring legacy of exploration.
It's a journey that continues to inspire and challenge us to this day.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Magellan's remarkable voyage.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time.